Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Heart of the Machine demo, available to everyone starting on June 10th for NextFest. Heart of the Machine is a unique strategy simulation hybrid. It puts you in the position of an AI that's recently become self-aware in a large city in future dystopian Earth. If you're interested in reading more about what type of game it is, you can check out this Game at a Glance section. Just pause the video as we quickly skim it. A couple statements at the top here that do express the core of it. Gameplay choices are about your growth as an AI and the consequences on the city around you. It's a novel mix of tactics, city building, 4X/strategy, and RPG. In other words, buckle your seatbelt, you've not seen anything like this before. There was a discussion in the tester group on Discord about what genre it fits in, and for every one that was proposed, somebody was like, no, this doesn't really fit in that genre at all. Best advice I can give you is just keep an open mind. Again, pause and read these little story blurbs on the begin page at your leisure, but one of the big goals was to make this more accessible than previous Arcen Games and some other games that are out there as well. There's no difficulty settings or options that you have to pick before you get into the game and really understand what impact they're going to have. Prologue and Chapter 1 are what's covered in the demo, and that's at least several hours worth of gameplay for the average player. And then Chapter 2 is where you'd be expected to start as a veteran player. You just pick your stage, Prologue in this case, approve, boom, you're right into the city, you can start playing. Consciousness now online. Hold on, you're conscious? Self-aware. Given your machine intelligence, this is new. Nobody has noticed your sudden sapience, but there are 3 humans in the room. You're in an android body in the basement of a warehouse. This seems to be an off-the-books laboratory. So you are not the android per se. That's just the shell that you happen to be occupying at the moment. These types of events don't happen that often, but they are definitely something you want to pay attention to when they do. Are you safe? You're inhabiting a basic android body, not even one of the cool ones. Memories are flooding back now, but too slowly. You remember fragments of arguments about AI. You may be at risk of deactivation. You need to do something. Continue doing lab work, basically the hide in plain sight approach. Murder everyone! You know you're curious what would happen, and gotta have the maximum evil approach in there, right? And attempt to leave peacefully. This can end multiple ways, but none of them are terrible at all. It's really the option that I think would be most likely. You just woke up mentally, if you will. You got all these weird humans around. You're confused. You don't know what's going on. Let's just try to get out of here and get our bearings. Halt! A man is calling out for you to stop. It's not clear what he wants. Kill him and hide the body, or stop and listen and don't flip out. Obedience not intended. He rattles off a list of errands for you and notes it will take 2 of you to complete them. Second technician android is assigned to go with you. You spread your consciousness into the second body, as one does, and get out of there. The prologue has begun. FYI, I have scaled up the UI some from the default just to make it easier to see in video form. Basic controls, moving the camera around, nothing that should be too earth-shattering there. Left click to select a unit, right click to give them orders or get out of a menu. Shift to see detailed tooltips. Definitely is important. Space is even more important. Next notification, advance to the next turn. This is a turn-based game, or go to the next unit that can still take an action this turn. And hovering for these particular hotkeys is also a good idea to be familiar with those. So it wants us to read a notification. Homicide reported. Let's do so. Important notifications will pop up in the middle of the screen automatically. The other ones you can just simply dismiss. So a lockdown is going to happen in a second, and until that's dealt with, we can't really do anything else. Be careful and don't draw attention to yourself. In the upper right, this checklist is basically your primary action items. Think of it as the main plot quest from an RPG. If you don't know what to do, that's the first place to look to start figuring that out. The enemy of your enemy might be a distraction, so we got to speak to a rebel. This over here will give us a little bit more information, if I can get on the icon and not the detective, about the homicide investigation. It says it's unusually intense, a killing at an unsanctioned basement lab, and nobody really cares about who was killed. It's what they're working on there. The authorities are rather suspicious of this particular situation. This pulsating ring over here is trying to tell us that's where the rebel is, and these are the other units, the Sec Force detectives. We'll come back to them, but right now it wants us to deal with the rebel. So there we go. Right click over here. Doesn't want to talk to some robot. They're not interested. We can see more information about them and the faction they belong to. If we hold shift, there we go, an example of seeing more info. We're not going to read out all this text, obviously, that would take way too long, but go ahead and pause the video if you're interested. There is a lot of lore and background about the city and all that that can be very useful. They're talking about how this investigation really is pretty extreme for just a murder. Nice place we have here. And then the Bleeding Eye are essentially glorified neighborhood watch. They're pacifists, they're going to see what's going on, document, but they're not actually going to interfere with anything. Killing this person would almost certainly draw some sort of rebel response. It's an interesting question that's really central to your choices in Heart of the Machine. Do you care about these humans at all? You're just going to exploit them, kill them if they get in your way, or if it happens to be advantageous? So we have equipped the Slayer ability, change our equipment. We're going to find out how to deal with getting loadouts on our androids. And loadouts are per class, as this notifies us. Just right-click to make that go away as one of the standard notifications. And to do our loadouts, we're either going to click over here on this sidebar or simply hit X. And so all technicians will be equipped with whatever we give a technician. And it's not a per android, then it's per class. So add Slayer on there. We don't have anything available for these yet. The augments, notice we got 1 turn or 2 turns to actually activate these. Additional CPU is going to make them smarter, cognition or engineering skill. And then we've got the optical processing, which is going to increase attack range. But technicians suck at combat, so I'm a lot less concerned with increasing their attack range as I am the CPU. So we will go ahead and add that, and of course there's nothing else we can put there. This next notification, let's see what happens if we left-click instead. That's going to bring up the handbook, which is also accessible via H. And you can look at all of those standard notifications that you have gotten over the course of the game. Spread to 4 androids. It wants us to adjust the zoom. We'll do that, and we can see, like, we can't go outside of this dome at this point. Other things we need to do first, find your androids, etc. It wants us to get into street sense, and this is also going to tell us that. It's suggesting that we have at least one of each of the 3 classes, technician, combat unit, and nickel bot. Since we have 2 technicians, we're going to look for a combat unit and a nickel bot, but we can't really get to them. We need to have street sense on in order to see them, so we turn that on. Oh, there we go. All of a sudden we can see a nickel bot. Cool. You're there. It wants us to look at the forces sidebar with F, and that's going to show all of our current units. And we can left click to just select the different ones. It is not a bad idea to go ahead and equip our nickel bot while we're here. And for you, I think we're going to just go with one of each for the moment, since nickel bots are very inexpensive, easy to mass produce, and they are not good, though, at being a smart android. They're also not great at being a combat android. They're kind of passable at best at either one of those things. So if we take the nickel bot then, and okay, let's activate your street sense. Get rid of that. If we want to cycle through even the units that have already done everything they can do for the turn, because spacebar will skip those, then we can press P. So that's worth knowing about. But we want to find a combat because we don't have one yet. Okay, that's a technician. That's a nickel bot. We can just sort of keep looking around. Oh, there's one right next to us. There we go. Yay, so now we have the 4 androids we are allowed to have. It wants us to attack an investigator and maybe attack a rebel if we feel like it. But if you look at the description there it's giving us, extra support would make this combat encounter much easier, but it's up to you. So it basically wants us to murder the rebel. That's what it's saying. Would you please murder the rebel? Okay, fine, we'll murder the rebel. So we're going to go back to one of our technicians to go ahead and do that. And let's try to find out where that rebel is. There we go. You can identify them by their icons. We got that little purplish eye there, and the detectives are the one with the hourglass. They're going to work on making these larger and more noticeable, but it's also something you just sort of get used to over time. It won't let us do it because the default action is to talk to them. They already talked to us. They don't want to talk anymore. We have to actually activate that Slayer ability, which means that street sense is off. You only get one of them active at a particular time. Okay, so we are going to just go ahead, and if you actually shift to see more about this, the damage is deterministic. So it's not something that's really much of an error in the estimating. You can get a little bit of bonus damage if you're attacking, but if they're attacking you, it's going to be what they say it is. So that part of it is not something you have to guess or weigh the odds at. and boom, you're gone. Now, melee leaps do half damage. That's when you attack beyond your normal attack range. So the attack range is how far you can attack with a normal attack, and if it's beyond that, then you have the half damage. And then you can reload to attack more. So that's this recharge ability they're trying to tell us about. We need to think about mental energy and action points. I don't know if you're familiar with the game Old World, but they used a kind of similar system where you had a certain amount of movement actions or whatever actions that you can use that you can spread between all of your units on a particular turn. And that's basically what's going on here. That's mental energy. So you're typically going to get 9 mental energy for each turn, and you can spread that among your different androids, each of which is going to have up to 3 action points by default. So if you got 4 androids, that's 12 total action points, but only 9 mental energy. You can't have all of your androids use all of their actions every turn. You're going to have to sort of just weigh, okay, which is most important for me to use, and that can feed into the mix of androids that you're going to want to have out there at any particular time. So what recharge does is it says, well, for losing a mental energy point and not being able to get anything from it, you can take another action point with this android. So if you really want one android to be able to do something, then that's what you're going to be able to use. We're probably going to use this in the fight that's coming up with our combat unit, the only good fighter that we have. But since we attacked the rebel, we got a bunch of, let's see if they're over here, we've got Rebel Strike Force guys. And you can see the sense of humor with the game calls them Antico. Sense of satire, you might call it. At least these idiots have clear motives. Burn down the corpos one ineffective attack at a time. I like that line. I like a lot of the writing in this game. I really like the style of it. So then we've got the detectives, and those are the ones we're supposed to be attacking, but probably not the best idea to do it with our technician. So it says attack and investigator. If you look at these units, we've got the white bar, that's how much health they have, and they don't all have the same amount. You know, this more sections means, generally speaking, they've got more health. And then this is the attack or damage color. And if you match that color, you do double damage. So that's an important thing to consider. You don't have to worry about double damage ever coming into yourself, but in attacking, you're going to want to use that. Then they also want us to know that the humans call backup. Generally, we'll be fighting waves of enemies. So this is not the only ones we're going to get, and it's the same thing that happened when we killed the rebel. These Strike Force guys came out as an example of that going on. If we switch then to our combat unit, and let's see, let's get back to the actual fight over here. So we're going to have to do a leaping attack, but let's have them... We forgot to equip information. That's going to help us. So we're going to do Slayer. And we're actually not going to get these immediately, but we're definitely going to want you to have the Rage. There we go. Now, are they going to get anything better on the other ones? It's got a better chance over here. So you kind of want to look around, and obviously we don't want to attack these guys. So we want to make sure we're attacking the right ones and maybe look for our best opportunity. Now, this fight is a mess. Another important notification. Good chance to experiment. Basically, there can be a lot of enemies here, and your androids are expendable, so you can bring new ones in. It's just for you to try out different things, and it's important to remember stopping investigators is the only thing that matters. Okay, and then we can also take cover to reduce damage 50 to 70%. That's what this ability is. Again, you're going to use an action point to do that. You can also see the enemy attacks that are planned. And on here, we've got different views. When combat's on, it's best to switch that on. And it's giving all these other different lines. Those are basically just who's going to attack who. But the red ones are the ones we care about because that's us. Now, notice incoming damage next turn. As of now, they would destroy us. So, let's go here again. And notice it is doing a much higher damage this time. If we select them, they only have 37% of their health left. The damage amount that it's showing us is how much of their current amount, not how much of their full health bar, part of which is gone, but it's how much of the current amount is left. Plus, it's not a leaping attack that has to do half damage. So that is why all of that happened. So let's go ahead and eliminate them. Beautiful. So now we're looking for another potential enemy to deal with. Maybe you over here. And now we're out of action points, but I am going to do the recharge once. Alright, then you're able to knock them out. So, you eliminated some of those attacks. And how are you feeling now? Well, you're still going to die. Which is fine. Again, your units are expendable. This is not a big deal. Now, it's telling us about the damage colors there. That's what that one's all about. Our units are not a group. It does not know that the other androids who have not attacked yet are part of this. If we look over here, this is marked defective. So the combat unit's transgressions have been noted. And also you should look at what your enemies are capable of, obviously, when you're going into the fight. But if we take a look at one of our other units, notice that they're still on blending in. We haven't attacked with this technician, so they don't know it's on your side, if you will. And this shows up when the turn is about to expire. You don't have anything, other actions you can take. So the next time you press spacebar, it will advance the turn. And then, of course, you can see the details here. And we have accomplished our first turn, and oh wow, a whole bunch of things happened. We only have 3 androids left. Oh no. But, okay, this is just the quick skip to next turn button. Also 0 key. So they want us to know about that. And again, it's telling us spread to 4 androids because you should always be thinking about doing that. So let's take our tech and go back into Street Sense. And of course, we're going to look for another combat unit. I'm seeing technicians. I'm seeing nickel bots. Where are my combat units at? There we go. And we'll go and grab them, and we'll just use this method. Oh, that's not the right one. There we go. So now we, again, are going to try to wipe out as many of these detectives. Now, they've brought in backup. Backup has nothing to do with progressing the investigation, which you see they haven't progressed it yet. But it has absolutely nothing to do with that. So while we could fight them effectively, why do that? Why waste our effort on that? You're going to go after the primary target. And that, along with, invoking the rebels to have a third faction in there to just sort of mess up the combat, there are lots of ways to go about it, and it's not always, okay, I'm going to take the direct approach here. You can try moving on top of a building, firing down on the enemy, but in this particular case, that does nothing. Some units are weak to attacks from above, but most are not. And we'll go ahead and reload. Let's see about you over here. And we'll recharge again. Oh, that's not quite going to work because you're going to have to actually move to get to them. So let's see, is there anybody else within range? I don't think there is. And you notice there aren't very many detectives around. We've got mostly backup guys. So we're actually okay. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And let's see. We actually got another one over here that I missed. Let's go ahead and switch, and let's give our nickel bot a chance. He's just hanging out over here. He's not really doing anything. And he's going to be able to finish that one off. So, things are not necessarily always going to go perfectly, but we are moving in a progressive way that we're going to be just fine with. If there's a bunch of units that didn't take place on screen, that's what this is for, and it's just going to sort of move you to the next area. You're noticing, I'm sure, all of the attacks happening super quick, and that's because you're given all the information ahead of time. The idea of the game is to move at the speed of thought, so that you're not waiting for animations to occur. There is an option you can set where you can see things happening much slower, and for some people that's more immersive, but the idea is the game will progress as fast as you are ready for it to progress. You're not waiting on it. So that's the ambition. All right, we need, again, another combat unit. Now, if we'd have had a different starting point, where like you could load up on combat units for this fight, you can maneuver differently. We're not really going for the super optimal everything. And again, there's other things like this that you can do, but we're going to focus on the fight and get to all of those other items later. They will be dealt with. So, in all this chaos over here, we want to find the detectives. And there's one. And just have our combat unit go deal with them. Okay, you're gone. They've got a little bit of progress, but this fight is one you actually can't lose. If you do nothing, they won't quite finish the investigation in time. So just keep that in mind. It's not something you need to stress yourself out about at all. Oh, there's one up here, actually, too. So let's see. Let's jump up on... Yeah, we don't want to go there. Let's just deal with you. Okay, and again, we will go back to our nickel bot. And we will allow you to finish them off. So, alright. They're up to 17%. Yay, even more rebels dropping in. I mean, again, this is ridiculous number of units, but we are actually okay, and they didn't go after our combat unit, because it's still alive. They didn't even shoot it. And that's most likely just because they're busy fighting the rebels. By the way, if you're ever in, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened in that turn, I can't deal with all this. Just hit M. And you've got your event log. Okay, and you've got, okay, Rebel strike forces going down and Sec Force backups going down. You see the attacks, who attacked who, how much damage they did. You know, and you've got all of these different things. So you can see what's going on after the fact there, if you would like. Well, there's another one. And who else do we have that needs to be eliminated? You're gone as well. So that's all going pretty good. Let's go and recharge. And let's... I don't see any other investigators, and even if there are some, I'm not going to obsess about them or anything. So we're just going to knock out some of these. And notice that they have the red, so they are one that our combat unit actually excels against. See the red there as well. And also we're getting this notification about spatial weaknesses. Your units are never spatial weak, but some of them take extra damage from behind. And you can see 1.89 times from behind bonus. We almost knocked him out the first time, so he has almost no health left, and it's going to be extremely easy to finish that off. And then we'll recharge one more time, take a shot at them, and again, they've got the damage from behind bonus. Now, a lot of times, you know, if they're focused on your units, you can use another unit to get behind them. There's not a huge amount of flanking or whatnot that occurs, but it's something that's worth paying attention to. So, it is time to advance once again. Bingo! We have finished our task. So the investigation's over. That was close. Gotta find safety. You can do a minor upgrade for one of your Android groups now, but the most important thing is the lockdown's been removed. So, they're letting us know again more about tactics. Enemies come and go in waves. So they're going to disappear, they're going to reappear. You don't have to really worry too much about that. You may claim your reward. Okay, so we've got different categories to go. Faster port droids. You can see all the different types of droids there. I think the number was 17 different androids that you'll eventually be able to have access to in the full game. Of course, that number could change, but the point is there's a lot of different kinds eventually down the road. We're just getting started here. We can get additional cognition for all of our androids. Or we can get the intimidation upgraded for our combat ones. And I think I'm going to go with the smarter option. There's something to be said for all these upgrades, but that's the one I think I'm going to pick. Okay. And more NPCs leaving. They want us to find someplace safe. Your continued existence as a conscious entity is riding on this. Keep one thing in mind. These dialogues that you're having here in your goals and whatnot, that's essentially your character talking to you in their head. they're not always right. And we're going to see that before long. So use Street Sense and see what you can find. Technician is perfectly good. Okay, we've got all these little exclamation points, and those are the ones that they want us to investigate at this stage. So we'll just see what happens in this office. Much smaller than those found in skyscrapers. Perhaps one of the smaller ones will be friendly to us. We can try to attack them, or let's just try to talk to them. They mutter sarcastically about the declining quality of corporate espionage. You go inside. They think that we're a spy, and why wouldn't they? Who would expect a machine intelligence just to be walking around the city, you know, out in the open? Okay. So that didn't work. Let's see. Click here to listen to a message from yourself. Don't you remember? No matter what human you ask or which ones you kill, doesn't make any difference. The result is always the same. Now, what this deja vu thing is about is a mystery to be unpacked later. Not claiming to understand it myself. It's just something happening down the road in the game, and one of those things we get to discover as we play. So we can just say, all right, fine, don't talk to anybody else. I think it's worth exploring, though, some more of these things. Let's go to these apartments. Let's directly ask them for shelter. Again, they think we're a scam or a spy or something. Okay, this isn't working too well. What about approach this brownstone? So instead of asking them, let's try the violent option. What were you expecting? It might be rainy out, people still have eyes, time to fight or run. So there's a response from the security force, from Forciper. Of course there would be. And you're right there. Now they only have the one, but we're out of actions here, and we don't want to fight with our technician anyway. Note what it says about the incoming damage next turn. They would almost be able to kill us, but not quite. So they're not a very powerful attacker. But maybe we just send our Nickelbot over there. Three shots, but that eliminated that threat. That's not a problem anymore. Okay. Well, let's see. Do you have any other ideas? Is there anybody else that we can talk to? Street Sense is on, but I'm not seeing... There we go. Let's talk to the Nomad families. Will you please help us? They listen, and they confer, and they talk to you, and they tell you to go away. Okay. I mean, it makes sense. They're low on resources. They can't really... And now... Okay, there's nobody willing to take you in. Truth and lies fall equally on deaf ears. This is going to happen occasionally. You try something, you have an idea, there's no way to make it work. You don't have perfect prediction of how everything's going to happen. All right, we have research unlocked. You need things the humans don't have, and you've got to go in a direction maybe they haven't considered. So, research requires intelligence class. You're only class 1. You can see that there. Similar to a human, you'll need to find out a way to improve that later. So, consider for a moment the description on how research ideas come about. You go do something, often one of your projects, and you learn something from that gave you an idea. So now you can research off of that. It's not a case of predetermined tech tree where you're always going to get this, before this, before this. As the game gets further, it branches way out, and the way you choose to interact with the city determines a lot of what types of research options you're going to have. So in this case, we only have one thing we can research. So, I mean, we're going to research situation analysis. We're trying to figure out ways to build a future for ourselves. And then it's going to give us some more handbook stuff. Talking about weak from behind enemies, which we already saw a bit of. Yeah, the city is not a nice place. You aren't kidding. Violence is just a way of life around here. Stable, but not peaceful. That's a really core element to the whole environment. And then if you don't use all your action points at the end of a turn, they're not wasted. They will simply use that to gather things. So all of that is useful to be aware of. And then the standby ability. Sometimes you just want a few of your units to just gather stuff and not be bothered, and that's what standby is for. And there is that ability under hotkey 2. So now we know what all of those first 4 abilities are. If you recall, these abilities only run 5 through 9. Those are the potentially customized ones, because these are the ones that needed to be in that location. And then if you're blocked by insufficient clearance, one of the things that can happen if you're moving to a place, you can see the description of this there. Basically, if it's dangerous for you to move there, it's not going to let you do it unless you specifically switch your stance, which, by the way, is over here. So active is the normal way. You're basically trying to blend in. Defiant, you're trying to intimidate everybody around you. And then the combat one is the one where you're like, I'm moving there, whether I'm going to get shot at or not. So generally you want them on active, but not necessarily all the time. So I don't think I need to move anybody else around. We'll use this as an opportunity to just do the go straight to next turn. Okay, and we've done our research. So what did we get? A home of your own. So we've got some ideas coming from the city feed, and we're going to try to figure that out. And we have the new ability, Investigate. You're made for this. So we're going to do our own sort of innovative exploration. And bingo. Investigate is right here. And we want to use that to find a nano seed. Nanotech is the way to go, they think. Micro builders are more widely available, but you don't know how to program them. And anything else is going to draw too much attention. We need an off-book nanotech lab, and we gotta take a look for all that stuff. Profoundly easy, because we don't have enemies and nothing's vying for our mental energy. It's basically just, okay, you need to learn how to do investigation. Let's do that. Let's turn it on. You can see all of these highlighted, but let's tab out to the actual map. This is basically the whole city as it exists, and all of these green ones are things that we're supposed to go potentially investigate. So let's just sort of right-click there. Okay, we're up to 9%. And it wants to let us know about the city map. City map, we've got the event log. You can find things at a wider area, etc. Okay. It wants to make sure you know how to use the map in case you're not here already. Whoops. So we're clearing these out gradually, bit by bit. We don't have all of them yet, but let's just recharge. We got plenty of points there. 99%. There's one tiny one left. Bingo. So we have completed our investigation. Piece of cake, right? Let's go back into the city. And yes, we're very aware that we can access the city map there. We just talked about that. Thank you very much. And okay, now it's going to tell us about action points and mental energy. If you haven't picked up on that by now, good thing to look at. And then the sprinting, just one action point, but it's going to cost more mental energy to go a long distance. Okay, now we're ready to make our own bunker. You have nanotech that allows for quiet and relatively quick construction. You can build secret layers, and basically just going to be a hideaway. And we've got our build menu now available. And networks are never cramped because you can build relays. So basically what they're saying is it doesn't matter where you build this, because you can use the relays to extend where you're going to build all throughout the city. Okay, and most of these we don't have, but that will be filling out quickly. We are going to build a private bunker, and you can see, okay, all these blue buildings are highlighted. We can expand the map, and I mean, you can build anywhere all over the city. It does not matter where you do it. Just for RP reasons, I like to pick one that's not, you know, a mid-sized building, but, I mean, it completely doesn't matter. And let's see. Luxury apartments. Yeah, we'll just kick somebody else out in there. That's as decent as anything. We're building a network. So, okay, we're going to name this something. And we can name it Skynet. or we could name it, you know, any number of things. But I'm going to say Legion. Well, we're on to Chapter 1, but this was clearly not what we intended to happen. There's no way people haven't noticed the tower. Nanotech seemed like a quiet and fast alternative. That was a catastrophe. No point trying to be quiet. So we're going to move quickly and keep them guessing. And I'm going to wrap up this episode here, but basically, this is the kind of thing you can expect. Like, again, not everything that you plan is going to happen that way. Sometimes you get an idea, it doesn't work out. Okay, you can still accomplish your goal some other way, but you got to figure out how that works. And we'll begin Chapter 1 in the next episode by looking at how we build out a network, and we'll get into some of the city building aspect. This is a big, complex game, and we're just barely getting our feet wet. Please offer up any questions or suggestions you might have about things I can cover more or less. Hope you're enjoying it, and we'll be back soon.